Hi, my name is Thomas, I'm 42 years old, and for most of my adult life I believed I had cracked the code to stability. I grew up in Pennsylvania, the son of a steelworker and a nurse, and my parents drilled into me the importance of routine and responsibility. I followed that path almost mechanically college, steady job in it, and eventually marriage at 29. My wife, Claire, was 27 when we met, a graphic designer with this gentle, slightly introverted energy that contrasted with my own methodical, sometimes rigid way of doing things. We balanced each other out in a way that felt comforting. We bought a modest house in the suburbs when I was 33, a two-story place with a tiny backyard where I planted tomatoes every summer. By all accounts, we looked like one of those couples you see at barbecues or neighborhood gatherings, smiling, talking about remodeling plans, laughing about our dog's antics. I genuinely believed we were happy. I used to brag to friends that even after a decade together, I still felt lucky when I saw Claire curled up on the couch sketching, hair tied in a messy bun, glasses slipping down her nose. That's probably what makes the memory of the unraveling so hard to digest, because when you're convinced your life is steady, you don't notice the cracks forming. Or maybe you do, but you excuse them, telling yourself everyone goes through phases. It started subtle. Around her 35th birthday, Claire changed her habits in ways I chalked up to midlife curiosity. She joined a yoga studio downtown, started going 3 or 4 times a week. She bought new clothes, more fitted, trendier, not her usual understated sweaters. She became more private with her phone, though I told myself that was just modern life. Everyone scrolls, everyone texts, nothing to worry about. I didn't even get suspicious the first time she came home late saying her class had gone long. I was making pasta, and she breezed in with that post-workout glow, kissed me on the cheek, and hopped in the shower. It didn't feel sinister. It felt like life. What gnawed at me more than her schedule was the change in how she treated me. Not in arguments, because we rarely fought, but in the absence of small things. The casual hand on my back when she passed behind me in the kitchen. The way she used to ask about my day before launching into hers. Even the silly nicknames we'd trade back and forth. Those things thinned out, like a radio slowly losing signal. I wish I could say I confronted her early, that I noticed all the signs lined up and trusted my gut. But the truth is, I didn't want to believe anything was wrong. When you've built a life around the idea of we, the last thing you want to do is admit that we might be slipping away. The moment the curtain lifted was almost laughably mundane. One Saturday morning, I offered to take her car in for an oil change. She was still asleep, and I grabbed her keys from her purse. When I reached in, her phone screen lit up one of those preview notifications, and I saw a message that froze me in place. It was from a contact saved as E, and it read, "Last night was amazing. I can't stop thinking about you." My heart did this strange, hollow thing, like it skipped and doubled back on itself. I just stood there in the kitchen with her phone in my hand, staring at those words on the lock screen. I didn't open it. I couldn't. Something inside me felt like opening it would be crossing a line I couldn't come back from. And yet I already knew enough. You don't text a married woman "last night was amazing" if you're just a friend or a coworker. I put the phone back exactly where I found it, grabbed her car keys, and drove to the shop like I had intended. The whole time, my thoughts weren't even racing, they were eerily slow, like each one had to force itself through molasses before it hit me. Who is he? How long has this been going on? Do I confront her now, or do I wait? What if I'm wrong? That last thought looped in my brain the most. What if I'm wrong? When I came home, she was awake, sipping coffee and scrolling through her phone with that relaxed Saturday smile. And for the first time in our marriage, I felt like I was looking at a stranger. I caught myself studying her face, wondering what she looked like last night with someone else. The thought turned my stomach. For the next week, I lived in this awful state of performance. I pretended nothing was wrong, went to work, came home, made dinner, watched TV with her. But I started paying closer attention. She texted more often, sometimes tilting her screen away when I walked past. She had extra yoga sessions to evenings that week, and the way she kissed me goodnight, it felt perfunctory, mechanical, like muscle memory without emotion behind it. On Thursday, I broke. I waited until she went to shower, then I opened her phone. The passcode was the same as it had always been, our wedding date. That detail stung more than it should have. It didn't take long to find the thread with E. His name wasn't just an initial, she had saved him that way deliberately, probably to make it less obvious. His actual name was Eric. From the context, he was another member at the yoga studio. The messages were damning and detailed. Plans to meet, things they had done together, private jokes that cut deep because they used the same tone she once reserved for me. I sat on the edge of the bed scrolling, feeling my chest tighten with every word. There wasn't even the possibility of denial. It was all laid out in black and white. When she came out of the shower, towel wrapped around her, humming softly, I must have looked different. I couldn't school my face into neutrality. She froze when she saw me holding her phone. And in that silence, before either of us spoke, we both knew. I asked the question anyway. My voice sounded foreign to me, low and even. How long have you been sleeping with him? Her expression collapsed. At first, she tried the instinctive denials. It's not what you think. You don't understand, but I just handed her the phone, open to the thread. She sat down on the edge of the bed, clutching the towel tighter, and for a long time she said nothing. Finally, she whispered, 6 months. 6 months. Half a year of lies, of looking me in the eye every day and telling me she loved me. I wish I could say I exploded, that I screamed or broke something, but the truth is I didn't. I felt hollow, like the rage was too heavy to lift. I asked her why, and her answers blurred together into a mess of clicks. She felt disconnected. She needed excitement. She didn't think you'd notice. The one that cut the most was when she said, "You're a good man, Thomas." But I didn't feel alive anymore. Alive. As if our quiet evenings, our shared routines, our laughter over burnt pancakes weren't life. That night, I slept on the couch. The next morning, I went to work like usual, but the world looked different. Colors muted, sounds muffled, like someone had put a pane of glass between me and reality. That evening I didn't want to go home, but I didn't know where else to go. I sat in my car in the office parking lot until the sun dipped below the horizon, scrolling aimlessly through my phone, rereading texts from friends I hadn't spoken to in months. Eventually, I drove back. The house lights were on, and I felt this strange resentment toward the side of our home, like it had been complicit in the betrayal, like the walls had quietly witnessed every lie she told me. She was waiting in the living room, no TV on, just sitting there with her hands clasped together. She looked wrecked, red eyes, blotchy skin. I knew she'd been crying, and I hated that a part of me still wanted to comfort her. She started speaking before I even set my bag down. "I don't want to lose you, Thomas. It was a mistake. I swear, it meant nothing compared to what we have." That line meant nothing, ignited something in me. I snapped back, 6 months isn't nothing, Claire. Sneaking around, lying to my face, making plans with him, how is that nothing? My voice cracked on the last word. She tried to grab my hand, but I pulled away. That was the first time in 13 years I physically recoiled from her. I could see the pain register in her face, but I couldn't stop myself. I told her I needed space, and I went upstairs, locked the bedroom door, and lay there staring at the ceiling. For the next 2 weeks, our house became a battlefield of silence. We lived together but barely spoke. She texted me from the other room once, asking if I wanted dinner. I replied no. At night, I heard her crying softly in the guest bedroom, and part of me hated her for it, because she wasn't the one who deserved to cry. But another part of me hated myself, because even through the betrayal, I still loved her. That contradiction was unbearable. Eventually, she suggested couples therapy. I laughed, not out of humor, but out of disbelief. "You think sitting in an office talking about our communication styles is going to erase the fact that you've been in someone else's bed?" I asked. She didn't reply. The thing is, I knew I had choices: forgive and try to rebuild, or end the marriage. But both options felt impossible. Forgiving meant swallowing shards of glass every day, pretending not to picture her with him. Ending it meant tearing down over a decade of shared life, unraveling everything we'd built, dividing up furniture, calling lawyers, telling families. One night, I broke the silence. "Why him? Out of everyone, why him?" She hesitated, then said something you'll never forget. "Because he saw me as more than your wife." He saw me as me. That sentence gutted me, because in it, I heard not just her betrayal, but her loneliness. And suddenly, I wasn't just angry, I was ashamed. Had I made her feel invisible? Had I buried her individuality beneath our routines? Those thoughts didn't absolve her, but they complicated everything. I started drinking more, not to black out, but enough to blur the edges. After work, I'd stop at a bar a few blocks from the office and nurse 2, 3, sometimes for beers before going home. I didn't tell anyone. I didn't want pity. I didn't want advice. I wanted numbness. It's been almost a year since that night I saw the text. "We're separated now, living in the same house until the paperwork finalizes. We move around each other like ghosts, polite but distant." The dog seems confused by the shift, following me from room to room like he's afraid he'll disappear too. Sometimes I wonder if he'll ever trust someone again, or if the part of me that believed in permanence has been permanently amputated. I used to think love was a foundation, something you could build on forever. Now I know it can be a trapdoor, opening beneath your feet when you least expect it. And yet part of me still misses her laugh. Months passed, slow and relentless. The house felt emptier each day, even when she was still there. I started reclaiming small pieces of myself, the corner of the living room where I set up my old record player, morning runs along the river that reminded me I still had a body, a heartbeat, a rhythm that was mine alone. I didn't talk about her or the affair, not to friends, not to anyone. It was like carrying a scar on the inside, invisible, but always there. Claire moved out 2 months ago. She got a small apartment downtown, closer to her work and, apparently, Eric. I don't know if they're still together, I don't want to know. Our final conversations were polite but cold. I didn't hate her anymore, not fully. I realized hatred takes energy I simply didn't have. Grief, anger, disbelief, they were enough. I sold the condo we had bought together. Walking through the empty rooms one last time, I imagined all the memories etched into the walls. Lazy Sunday mornings, arguments over nothing, dinners we cooked together. It hurt, but I also felt a strange sense of liberation, like a weight I hadn't realized I was carrying had finally lifted. I started going out again, cautiously, at first. Coffee with colleagues, lunch with old friends, sometimes a drink with someone who laughed at my dry humor. I haven't dated seriously yet. Honestly, the thought of letting anyone in terrifies me. But for the first time in months, I also feel capable of it. Not just capable, but open. The hardest part isn't remembering her with him. It's remembering her with me, and realizing the version of our marriage I loved existed only in my memory. People talk about betrayal like it's a moment a punch you recover from. But it isn't. It's a slow erosion, a quiet reminder that someone you trusted can choose another path, and there's nothing you can do to stop it. And yet, life continues. Days pass, seasons change. The river freezes in winter, thaws in spring. I run along it, lungs burning, heart heavy, and I feel something familiar, resilience. Not the naive kind I had when we first married, but a stronger, quieter version. I can love again. I can trust again, cautiously, slowly, in pieces. I don't think I'll ever forgive her fully, not because I want revenge, but because forgiveness implies forgetting, and I won't forget. But I can accept what happened. Accept that love isn't always enough, and that sometimes even the strongest bonds can break. Sometimes, late at night, I still hear her laugh in my mind. And instead of pain, I let myself feel gratitude for what we had, for what I learned, and for the strange, fragile strength that remains inside me. I survived. I'm still here. And maybe that's enough, for now.